Okay, welcome back. It's hour number 3. And I guess all eyes in Japan are on the typhoon, which is headed, they say, directly toward Fukushima Daiichi. We will find out soon enough. Yoichi Shimatsu is in Hong Kong this week. Yoichi is a man who gets around, and we'll find out from him what's going on there. We're going to talk to Dana Durnford in just a few minutes. Yoichi, can you hear me, and how are you?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah, the typhoon has hit. It hit pretty much dead on Fukushima. It did not hit Tokyo very hard, but it did hit northeast part of Japan and dumped a lot of water there. So this follows up on the typhoon last week, which poured immense, how many hundreds of tons, we don't know, thousands of tons of water, which has welled up. Basically, the water pressure now underground at the Fukushima number plant is so great that vast amounts of radioactive isotopes are coming out from down below in the turbine rooms and below ground toward the surface. So we're seeing 10 times as much tritium, skyrocketing levels of strontium and cesium,
I read that.
And no way to contain it. Obviously, their attempt to build this ice wall to prevent this from happening utterly failed because of the chemistry of tritium, which is heavy water, which prevents the formation of ice. So basically, they have no defense, which means no one's saying anything because there's very, very few reports out of the Ministry of Economy lately about what's happening there on the ground and the underground. So we can assume the water is just welling up with, more radionucleotides than since, maybe 3/11, the week after that, welling up and pouring right into the Pacific Ocean. There is a diversion channel, and obviously it's open. So, it does not bode well for the United States in 18 months or so. And not to mention the atmospherics, the typhoon, you got to understand, blew headed toward a northeasterly route right over the Aleutian Islands, Alaska, and northern Canada.
Oh, terrific. So,
and it's going to drop a lot of that radiation and airborne radiation right into the American Midwest, eventually all over the United States. So,
it'll come
Canada,
right across
Europe.
on the jet stream and then down like it does into the Midwest.
Yeah, and over the Arctic, obviously, the last thing the Arctic needs is more tritium, which is breaking apart the ice cap, which is very little of it left. This should basically finish off. I would say that these last two typhoons probably will finish off the Arctic ice cap, and it will probably bring some very, very serious consequences, I think, to Scandinavia, the Baltic countries, as their ice and snow begins to diminish, because they rely on that, of course, for their water supply. Hard granite, a lot of it's kept in lakes and reservoirs. Not a lot of it seeps into the ground. So I think this is really the unfolding now. These typhoons, which were, by the way, caused by Fukushima, by the radiation in the
right out of the trench. Yeah,
right down there in the trench. This is about the 13th typhoon, 12th or 13th, that directly hit Fukushima. And this has never happened before in history. When I was a kid there, we may have at the most 5 typhoons a year, maybe one direct hit on a Japanese city in the north, somewhere in the northern area. That's it. Most of them spun out into the Sea of Japan or across the Pacific before they really did a lot of damage to the main island, So this is just unprecedented, certainly in my lifetime, certainly in modern history, and probably in all of Japanese history. There's never been anything like this. So these are definitely post-3/11 weather changes, which appear to be permanent now, a permanent feature of the whole, climatology of the North Pacific now.
The makeup of the trench has changed permanently, so yeah, of course.
Yeah, and the trench itself seems to be on the move, with that volcanic eruption that killed more than 60 people. That is a direct consequence of hyperactivity along the Philippine Trench. So in the Philippines, was hit by that typhoon Haiyan last year. Now those typhoons are directed much more toward Fukushima, those great typhoons. So we're seeing massive changes that radiation can bring about because of the enormous heat that generates.
Well,
in fact, that's free flowing. It's just free flowing wherever the currents take it, where the air currents take it.
Right. We've seen our 1,000. I think you and I projected up to maybe 1,000 metric tons a day. We don't know as the norm, not the 300 or 400 that TEPCO lies about. And now we're getting much more than that. And it is said that the downpour from this typhoon was just flooding the whole plant. All the buildings. How much more can these buildings take? They're sitting on mush now. I mean, really.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is, they'll probably just stay put because they got nowhere to go. But the problem is another earthquake, obviously, one of sufficient size. The liquefaction's already there.
Right.
What will another earthquake do? That's the problem. Will one of the plants actually start to topple? Oh, no, reactors topple.
Well, let me ask you a question. Liquefaction is a byproduct of some earthquake activity, and that leads to damage and disaster. If the plant is so mucky, would that tend to absorb some of the earthquake energy?
No. This is like permanent liquefaction. The earthquakes that have hit it have liquefied the salt, so there's no solid base left around this plant.
Oh,
no gravel.
Okay.
But all of it is loose. It's all like in a liquid flowing.
So it's floating. I got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's already floating, and the question is what does this mean when an earthquake, because earthquakes have been hitting, usually in the magnitude 5 or 6 range. But what happens if a 7 or 8 hits? It's basically a situation out of control, and the government right now they've got nowhere to turn. Right now, the 3-year leases on storage of nuclear waste. At all the nuclear waste dump sites now, there's more than 50 of them across northwest Japan. All the leases have expired, and all the villages don't want to send the leases anymore. They got a lot more radioactivity than ever. These are massive, 30-ton bags, full of radioactive, a lot of high-level waste
stacked up, thousands of them. Yeah.
Incredible football fields, like triple football fields of radioactive waste. And the village said, get them out of here, This was only supposed to be temporary. We're just trying to be helpful back then,
I remember.
Emergency. Now the government's got to figure out what to do. Good question. It means, I think what the bad thing it means is more incineration is going to happen then. The government is under pressure. Incinerate more waste and send more of this, of these particles, across the air currents, across the jet stream and above into the upper atmosphere, which means more, tons and hundreds of tons of, radioactive carbon all across the northern hemisphere. So, it doesn't look good for let's say a year and a half, 2 years from now for the U.S. and, Northern Europe. It does not look good at all. Yeah.
No. And there's, really nothing on the drawing board to try to extract anything from spent fuel pools 1, 2, and 3. They quit after getting allegedly about 40% or maybe 50% out of spent fuel pool 4. They had to stop for obvious reasons. They couldn't get any more. Twisted, bent, congealed, broken. We're kind of stuck in a status quo. We're not getting any news to speak of from the inside or the outside, which would lead us to believe that anything major is even in the works. It's just kind of...
And it's starting to dawn, I think, on the nuclear authorities that these are, volcanoes are a threat, so it's going to be very difficult to reopen any plants. And as the governor of Shizuoka Prefecture has been demanding, you've got to get the rods out of the reactors. Otherwise, we won't be able to get to them when the next big earthquake or volcano, Mount Fuji blows. That's it for not all of Japan. And we're talking about, Alaska will be gone. Canada, will be gone. But the stuff that Dana is talking about will be far inland by then. You're not going to see things like reindeer or caribou anymore. You're not going to see bear. You're not going to see your pets anymore.
Well, what was interesting, we had a report. We're going to go to Dana in just a moment here, but we did get a report of reindeer in where was it? Norway? I can't remember.
Norway, I've been up there. The Sami country, northern Norway, Finland, northern Switzerland.
The reindeer all of us suddenly showing higher radiation, and they were saying, 10
times the levels as before, and they were declining since Chernobyl.
They blamed it on Chernobyl. They tried to blame it on Chernobyl.
No. After
I know.
Because I was there. They killed all the reindeer. Started with brand new reindeer stock, from Siberia and from embryos at age, okay? And so all those are new herds with much lower levels. They had to kill off the Chernobyl era herds, okay?
Not anymore.
So, and then they seen in this last year a 10-fold spike in radiation
levels. Well, that's Fukushima.
And these people know. I mean, they've been through Chernobyl. They take recordings. They know what they're talking about.
Well, one of the stories I read was they tried to blame it on Chernobyl radiation. Obvious lie, grotesque lie.
Yeah. No, that's past history.
Let's go right now, Yoichi, and check in with Dana and see how he's doing on his latest research expedition up the BC coast. Dana, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, good. It's probably the first time I got on the radio without being exhausted completely, dropping, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, Yoichi's in Hong Kong now. You got, by the way, Yoichi, great phone connection there. That's a good phone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, good.
Okay. Dana, tell us what's going on.
I just wanted to thank Yoichi for that, for what he was saying there. I mean, my goodness, I've never heard somebody say stuff like that outside of you guys. That's it. I mean, that's it. Anybody that actually speak that honest and that articulate and that eloquent, I've never heard that. That was fantastic. Left me speechless. I just want to give everybody a reminder of BC coastline species. The largest Clintons in the world, the largest octopus, the largest sea slug, the heaviest sea star, you got the biggest barnacle. The Pacific cucumber usually outpaced every rock on the coastline. There's so many of them. There's 68 species of sea stars. There's over 600 amphipods, crustaceans, 75 sea anemones and their relatives. There's 478 species of sea worms. There's 111 species of nudibranchs, 250 species of sponges. There's 6,500 species of invertebrates without backbones, over 600 algae and kelps, and the list goes on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And, of course, 400 fish, 161 marine birds, 29 marine mammals. And we found maybe in the last 5 weeks 100 species altogether, but certainly none of them were plentiful. We never found many adults of anything. And, and quite honestly, if the barnacles, the kelpweed, the kelp cabbage, and the blue mussels disappear, the coastline will be empty. And, we could seed that coastline, but we got to stop Fukushima first. It's really something else to travel this coastline and see it this naked. I had an interesting talk with divers out there, caught them diving, and they were both on the boat, so I pulled up alongside of them. Mm-hmm. They were doing sea urchins, and I asked them, was there many sea cucumbers down there? And he said, just a few. I said, well, could you pick 1,000 pounds here? And he laughed at me. He said, no, it really truly is just a few. And to me, that is striking to think about, because they should be literally everywhere you went, you should be able to pick 1,000 pounds to 50,000 pounds in a reasonable spot. So for them not to see any of that whole area, that was a broken group of islands, beautiful spot in the Queen Charlotte Sound here. And it's really shocking as I go up this coastline. I just can't get past the point that it's the same picture every day. And I mean, it's no kidding. You get some extra little tiny species. We haven't seen anything. And so the ocean is truly not receding the coastline. It's really shocking that this is really happening. And of course, I can't cover it like Yoichi covered it earlier. He really tells the story. This is just one event and all that is happening to us. And this has been going on for over 1,300 days, folks. And Jeff and Yoichi don't do this for something to do. They do this because, it's the real deal. It's the most frightening thing imaginable to go out here every day and see utter destruction. Who could have even dreamed in 3.5 years it could be this bad? I can't even imagine it. And so totally 100 species out of all of that, and they were so sparse, and we're not seeing the same species in other places. It's 100 total cumulative around the coastline. And so I think it's time to have a debate. We're going to keep going, but it's certainly time to have a debate. I've covered up in this area, which is the Queen Charlotte Straits, and this runs down the inside of Vancouver Island and out the other side through all those fjords and inlets and everything else. Uh-huh. And so I decided to do the whole front of that. And 35 islands we jumped on. And it's the same thing everywhere. And so how could it be anything inside, not land there, but be deep inside? It's not possible. And the outside, there's even less. When you get out to the wild coastline, it's even less species on the shoreline. So it's real. It really happened to us. And we have to, like you guys were saying, we got to keep pushing, disinformation like that typhoon, the significance of that picking up all the tritium and all the other elements and bringing it over here. I mean, the jet streams, like Jeff, are real, even though a lot of people want to deny it in the academic community.
There are over 200 radionuclides, and all we hear about are the cesium twins, tritium, plutonium. We hear about 5 or 6. No one talks about all the rest of them. Now, some of them are heavier and they stay in the water. They move over slowly. Some of them are light enough. Apparently, they're uptaken in evaporation and become part of an enormous storm like this typhoon, which was hatched over the now radioactive Pacific Trench down south. Now, when that vast body of water is pushed up to the north and then moves across from west to east, it'll end up over Alaska. The jet will pull it over the middle of Canada, over BC first, of course, and then it'll drop down in the middle of the U.S. And that's the way it usually runs.
It's frightening, and it hasn't stopped, and the damage is evident. Nobody can deny looking at the pictures who have any kind of concept of the ocean. And so there's no reason we shouldn't soon have a debate. I took the windshield out of the boat today when we hit a wave. It was a really rough day, and we're doing everything we can to get out there.
Are you saying you lost the windshield in the Zodiac?
Oh,
you broke it out?
Oh, we got caught in a windstorm today, so we had to run for shelter, and then got blown out of that place. I was going to wait for the tide or the wind to drop out a bit before I made a run across.
Gee.
But I never had nowhere to hide, so I just made a run for it. And that's what I mean. It happens up here. That's the reason we got that 24-foot Zodiac, so that can pull it off. But yeah, I'm going to have to get a cabin on that thing before I go up north. I guess I'm going to go down and see a welder tomorrow morning and get another windshield. That's not going to be cheap. But still got to get done, and I'm not worried about this stuff. That's the way it is. We got to go out. We got to flush it all out.
How far north are you right now, Dana?
North, we're at the top of Vancouver Island. That's 460-kilometer long island. And so we're right into it right here now, into the really heavy stuff. And we're in that time of the year, of course, where it really picks up out of the blue. And this area is known to get really nasty, and I got caught out there today. And that's just another lesson. We got caught out a couple of days back, too, and that wasn't too bad. But today that was a really good beating I took the other day. So I came home and crashed for 4 hours after that one. I posted a little video up so people can get a kind of understanding of what we put ourselves through. And we're not doing this for something to do. There's no fun. There's no glory.
Did you take, in other words, you put up a video of you guys on the Zodiac in the storm, in the weather?
Yeah, today. Just a 4-minute video.
Can you make sure I get that somehow? Can you have somebody send that to me?
I can, so we'll get it out to you.
Yeah,
like I say, it took me 5 hours to upload a 4-minute video today, but I just really wanted people to appreciate how nasty it can get in just a matter of a half an hour. It was okay, and then all of a sudden it picked up, and I never even hesitated. I said, oh yeah, here we go, we better get out of Dodge. And like you say, the other option was to camp out on an island for the night, and we almost took that option, but we would have had to run way down coast to find shelter, and that would have been just as nasty as trying to run across the spit. Mm-hmm. And it should have took me about 15 minutes. It took me about 40 minutes to get through it. And like I say, it just tore the windshield right off the front of the boat. Just big waves come right through her. And so, now I'm thinking I got to get my cabin on. And normally I would put bulletproof glass around these things, but it'll be too much top weight on that thing. And so I'm going to drop the roof down 6 inches. I know I digressed that time. And just put really good glass around it to get some shelter from when we do get caught. At least we can drop the pick, tie onto an island, pick being an anchor, generally you back up and you put a beach line on a tree and then you sit it out till the weather breaks. And the boat is long enough to do that. We already got the roof on it. But, I mean, out of the 6,500 species of the invertebrates, the ones without the backbones, we haven't seen any of them, in the tidal zones. We haven't seen any of them in the tidal pools. And that is really, truly, startling not to see that. And out of the sponges, we've probably seen 3 different types of sponges out of 250. We haven't seen any of the sea worms whatsoever out of 470-odd species. Out of the 75 sea anemones, we've only seen maybe 5 symmetrically throughout the coastline. And sea stars, I think we're still sitting on 5 species of sea stars on top of that. And so it's not really good, and even if this was a healthy coastline, that would be nothing. But once again, if the couple of algae that are on that shoreline disappear and the barnacles and the big blue mussels, there will be nothing left on the shoreline whatsoever. Nothing.
How are these people going to continue to deny what you're finding?
Right.
How can they do it? I mean, are these people at Bamford Institute, whatever it was?
Yeah, Banfield, yeah, that's right.
I mean, Banfield.
They took down that video, still down.
How are they going to... Oh, come on. They can't keep playing these games. You caught them apparently artificially trying to create something that isn't normally there anymore.
Right, the sea anemones on rocks saying they didn't exist. And, of course, it was just a matter of Googling the pictures and finding all the divers that dove Berkeley Sound, and that was easily... And I got my video knocked down, but I guess he must have been a student, maybe. I haven't been able to prove that part, but he sure seemed like he spent a lot of time out there. When you search his name in Banfield, you'll find a lot of data on that. And I just don't have the internet to get through it and look for it. I can't even keep up to the news. I was listening to you guys talk about the typhoon, and that was the first I caught of it, and I was like, oh no. Right smack dead center. Yoichi, that's heartbreaking to think that is happening. Because we know the Wigner effect, I think it is pronounced, deteriorates, this is radiation, deteriorates the material, and the buildings are already completely unstable and have probably went through about 1,000 at least earthquakes in the last 3.5 years, and so they're very, very unstable.
Well, what he said also, Dana, very important, that is that these typhoons all of a sudden they're tracking. It's almost like they're going home. They're tracking back to the point of their origin, which came from the radiation that went out in the trench and moved down south. It's kind of bizarre and poetic in a way, if you think about it. They're going home.
Yeah, they're going into that.
Yeah, it's weird. All right, we have a break coming up, but I'm going to just do a little something here, then we'll go through the break instead, because I want to make sure we get as much from Dana as we can. Let me just remind you real quickly that after years and years and years and years, we've got something kind of fun on the site. If you look up near the top, third banner down, you'll see we've got Rense.com T-shirts now, short sleeve and long sleeve for you folks who've been asking for them for years. So it's a fun thing. It's an understated kind of a T-shirt, and just hopefully will encourage people to go look and see what it is. And maybe when they look and see what it is, they'll see Dana's work and Yoichi's work and all the other important work that we try to bring you 24 hours a day, and on the radio network, of course, around the clock as well. So take a look for the T-shirt banner. You'll see it up there. I think they look nice. Very high quality products, and it'll help us. It'll help everybody learn. I remember somebody sent me an email once. Somebody had put a Rense.com logo on a Vienna bus bench in Austria. It was kind of cute. So people, they understand and they appreciate it, and that makes us feel real nice, and we even work harder for you. And that's what Dana and Yoichi are doing. They're working, basically doing this work for you. It's not something that pays. It's something they do because they can, and they're honored to do it. This Yoichi, this situation that he's finding up there, took long enough to manifest, although as Dana found out earlier, there really were no carcasses, skeletons, or old shells laying around. So I would suggest that it's possible that the major die-off, the wipeout up there, might have happened a year or two ago, and it's just continuing to worsen. What do you think?
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's I think was what's happened, is Dana's seeing the aftermath, and it's still ongoing, obviously, that there's 100 species left to go, and it will catch up with them, obviously. There's no form of life that's immune to radiation. So, yeah, so we're talking about some massive events. And then what he said about the waves, these typhoons generate a lot of waves, and the ones he probably just encountered, these massive waves, are probably that blood red moon, that the full moon that came in very close to Earth this last week, combined with typhoons. And so we can expect a lot of wave action. So it's going to be quite dangerous for him and his crew out there. I hope they're very cautious as this comes up. But, and these waves are very deadly because they are pushing, the stuff that's floating across the North Pacific is pushing it inshore. And this is what's very alarming. Very alarming.
Are you seeing any of the tsunami junk where you are?
Right, we did Google the stuff we found, and so far whatever we found was from Japan. And so that was pretty interesting. And that was lower down the island on the outside. We found a lot of it. We're on the inside. We're not seeing much of it in here. But we're heading, like you say, we're heading up to the real zone where it's already been reported. We'll have use the Geiger counters where we get close to that stuff because we know the radiation won't wash off it, and that's going to be really hot stuff, some of that, if we find the right stuff. Because as the debris came out of Fukushima, the reactors were spewing out heavy stuff, and that coated the stuff as it floated away. And, of course, it doesn't take long to pass the radiation onto material. If it lands on it, it sticks to it really well.
Oh, especially plastics. Plastics love it. They just,
is that right?
Yeah. Yoichi, tell us about plastics absorbing radiation.
Yeah, plastic, because they're not really solid. They're organic molecules, and they do absorb, and they don't have a cellular structure. Wood tends to resist radiation because it is cellular. Cellulose prevents radioactive particles from penetrating cells. Plastic is just wide open. So I've always found the highest levels in things like fishing buoys or bottles. Let's say these plastic oil can bottles out of Japan. It just picks it up. And even the ones from China, they plant a lot of nets out there in the Pacific. So the water pushing out from Fukushima, ripping some of the Chinese buoys off and Vietnamese buoys, those two become, let's say, half as radioactive as the ones from Japan. Yeah. So plastic is a good indicator of what's going on out there.
We'll look at them for sure. And that makes a lot of sense because Banfield director, he was telling me, of course, the white sea anemones were growing on the wharf. And I said, well, wharf's only been around for a short while. Where did they grow before? And so I kind of thought there was something about that. Maybe there was more bacteria on wood or something. So that really makes a lot of sense, Yoichi. We'll definitely check out the plastic buoys way more now that we understand that part, yeah.
So the other thing, funny that Dana mentions the sea cucumbers, yeah? Because here in Hong Kong, they're very, very expensive. The Japanese companies buy up all the sea cucumbers off the coast of Canada, west coast of Canada, and Alaska. It's a multi-million-dollar industry, generates a huge amount of money for both countries, and they're dried in Japan, where it's very cold in the winter, and shipped to Hong Kong, where they fetch a very high price. They taste, they have to rehydrate them in regular water and then cook them. The consistency, something like a very well-aged real pickle cucumber. So very interesting thing, but the economic damage that you're talking about will have a massive ripple effect as years go on, because this is a major trade item.
And they're missing. That's confirmed now. The divers were down there all over that same spot where we were hitting the beaches on. I was watching them for a couple of hours, and so when they told me that I always had the camera on the water trying to get pictures of the floor, and we got a bunch of I got a bunch of dive gear, so we'll probably be hitting the water coming up soon for sure. That seems to be the plan from here. At least be able to swim along the shoreline. It's a little safer than trying to get in there and beach it. We're getting into really rough stuff up here. It ain't going to get any better as we head up north. It's definitely going to be big seas every day. And we're well equipped. We're in really good shape. That kicker saved me a couple times. I sheared off the motor, the steering pin the other day coming in rough weather. That's what I was going to tell you earlier.
You're running on an outboard?
So we're running on an outboard. It's a very, very nice one. But we got a kicker on the back of it. That saved me again the other day. We got that because we put the pleat out on your show a few weeks ago, and Elaine stepped up for that one. And the motor overheated in the kelp, and the motor went down. I was right up tight to the rock pile, and it pushed me right in there. And I just got the motor on the day before, and I forgot about it. And I turned around to get the to get the flagpole to push myself when I come up to the rock pile, because I knew it was going to happen any second. And here was the motor in front of me. I just hit the start button, it started up, and 30 seconds later I was safe. I mean, that's how important something like that is. And then the other engine was okay, and I was able to start it up. We're going to see a lot more of that happening to us for sure.
Well, what you're describing is pretty scary, frankly.
It is so.
How big are the seas? How big are the waves, the swells?
I've been out in the last week at least 4 times in 20-odd footers. And that thing, thank goodness we got the Zodiac is all I can say, because that's what it's made for, and it performs really well. But once again, it can take a better beating than I can. That's for sure, you know.
That's still that's too much, 20-foot seas, Dana. That's too much. Yeah. You got to.
Well, that's what we've done. That's what we've done all my life. But this is a little different, where you can't get anybody on a beach in that kind of condition. So you got to find a little tiny spot, hide away, and you got to walk out to the front of the island to get on the island. And that's how you'll get the data. The only way to get the data.
For those who don't know, Dana's gets around with leg braces and basically crutches. He's got a physical limitation, things he can't do anymore because of a diving accident. So he is not 100% physically able to run this thing, and yet he's out there doing this, and I just can't even... Nobody else that I can even imagine would do this.
No, I get to come home and sleep each time. That's the only way I pull it off.
Well, home is an RV, right?
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I was kind of lucky this time. I came up. We're up here in the North Island. I used to live up here. And so I passed my birthday there last week. And
happy birthday to you.
Showed up. Yeah, thank you. A dozen of them showed up and threw a surprise birthday party for me from up on the North Coast. And so that was really made my whole year, literally, because it's been 7 years since I've seen the old gang, and, you know, it kind of brought you back to reality.
That's nice.
They didn't reject the message. They went and looked at it themselves and realized it. And I got some interesting tidbits from them. Some of them works at fish plants out here, and the fish farm plants out here, and they're laying off a lot of workers, and they're cutting back on this and cutting back on that, and they were wondering if it might have something to do with this. Of course, I don't know. We're out alongside of these fish farms, and they're right in the zone of all these islands out there. These islands are now all empty, and people got to realize how much current actually comes straight through here and goes straight on past it. So it's not like it lingers around or something like that. It just comes flying right through here and out the other side every few hours. And we went way up into the islands, way past all that stuff, and there's still the same thing. Inside was the same thing. Outside was even less, and sounds like my phone is going to die off on us, so...
All right, well, we'll say thank you, and take good care.
Thank you,
this is, don't push it too far. You know.
Yeah, we know the limits, and like you said, we're not afraid to give it up for today, Jeff. Thank you, and Yoichi, folks, and everybody else. Best wishes.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck to you. Good luck.
Okay, Dana. Talk to you next week.
Good night, Jeff. You too.
Thanks.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Very brave man.
Wow, that's incredible stuff. Yeah, it's scary on the seas like that, even on a very firm, good-sized boat. Imagine being out there on a raft. Unimaginable.
A Zodiac is a raft. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's
just unimaginable what they're doing and the commitment they're showing. I hope everyone gives them the support they deserve along the way and any other way they can. This is an odyssey for sure against some really serious, mean stuff out there. And navigational hazards, we haven't even begun to think of that as a product of Fukushima. You know, this whole chain of problems that it generates, it's just incredible. If you hear any noise in the background, I'm in the airport, so there's these very obnoxious announcements happening.
No problem.
Okay, good. Economic impact from loss of seafood sales, the coast devastated. And, the stuff is working its way down south and north. There's no doubt about it.
That's what I wanted to bring up next. When you were here, was it a year and a half ago, and you were you actually did some necropsies on the beach of dead sea lions.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah, the serious ingestion problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of, buildup of mammals, yeah.
Yeah, we got to stop here for just a little break. We'll come right back. You ought to, I don't know when your next planned trip is over here, but it's probably something that you might want to think about next spring. We'll see after the winter.
Yeah, we have to check up because, again, this is not, as I said right from the beginning, this is not confined to a small area of Fukushima province. This is really a truly global problem,
of course,
especially for the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
And especially for those people who live on the Pacific. And they've got to start thinking of what they can do. How are they going to respond? And in some ways put pressure on the Japanese government to come up with the truth. Because without facts, without warning, what are people left with? People have no idea of the threat levels coming across.
Agreed.
When they're coming across.
Okay. We'll be right back.
This is not right. It's not right.
It's not right at all. And we'll continue in just a minute. Okay, and we're back. The stories just continue to be shocking. Over 100,000 becquerels per kilogram of cesium-134 and 137 still found in a park in Chiba. 100,000 becquerels per kilogram of cesium-137. As you mentioned, the tritium density in the groundwater has jumped by a factor of 10 from all the flooding at the destroyed plant. It's not good, and it's not getting any better. I just don't know how much longer we can keep. Nobody over here, nobody's talking about Fukushima. Nobody, Yoichi. It's just not mentioned. It's not in the media.
Worldwide, that's the case. Wherever I go, I travel a lot. People say, things aren't okay by now. Hasn't the situation improved? And I said, no, it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
And people are stunned. Their jaw drops, stunned that I say it's actually worse than it was after 3/11. It's building up all the time. And it's a much wider area. Of course, after 3/11, there's the narrow bands of areas that were white, but now it's pervasive across Japan. Now it's in Alaska, in Canada, and Norway even. It's a blot that continues to spread, and no one wants to face the fact that it is getting bigger. It's not getting smaller by any means. It's spreading.
Do you know, are there any honest, interesting, serious plans to do anything at the plant? That the ice wall was a joke. I don't know anything that's on the drawing board.
Well, they were supposed to have that system out of Irvine, California.
Another water purifier. Yeah.
They turned that thing on, but after they turned it on, the tritium levels and the cesium levels, carbonium levels spiked. Went up, not down. So they're obviously overwhelmed, and there's a lot of people in the Department of Energy, obviously, who made a lot of money on that deal, from Japanese taxpayers. The money is misappropriated to TEPCO, which spends it on all sorts of things like, bribing politicians and such, TEPCO is the center of corruption. There's 300 companies in TEPCO. The Tokyo governor was removed from office, had to resign because he was involved in a crooked deal of a TEPCO hospital in Tokyo that was going to be sold to a major hospital, corporate hospital group. So this thing is an economic monster, not just in Japan, all over the world. In Sellafield, England, in Canada, Cigar Lake, in Australia, in New York, on the Wall Street exchanges, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. So let's not kid around at what we're dealing with.
Well, I'm not. You're not. Our listeners get it, but when it's not in the media, it's easy for people to just deny it, and that's the game. Keep it out. I just don't understand it. The Olympics are coming, so don't worry. That's going to be the big thing.
Good question. What you just said about Chiba. Chiba is right on the outside of Tokyo, and out of that radiation is new stuff, since 3/11 that's come in off the Pacific Trench. Whenever the rains come in off the Pacific Trench, they blow in a lot of radiation, and the levels in Tokyo Bay is right. You have to understand where the Olympics is. There are 3 sources of radiation. There's the incineration that's going on all around Tokyo Bay, gigantic incinerate, burning plastic that's radioactive. You've got inwash coming up from Tokyo Bay, and then wind blowing in from the Pacific, and also the Edogawa River comes down from the mountains of Saitama, which are radioactive. So, the Olympic site is being hammered from three sides by radiation. So, and the Olympic Committee is just ignoring this. This is ridiculous. It's, basically, it can't go forward. It's going to be, not at the rate of strontium releases right now, tritium releases. Obviously not possible. And the only question is, where is it going to be moved to?
You mentioned they're going to burn more of this. Are they still burning around the clock?
They're continuing to burn. You see trucks.
And nobody says anything.
All the time. These little trucks every day. There's like streaming in these little trucks bringing in garbage, radioactive garbage. There's backlogs in Fukushima area I talked about. Tagged bags, ready to go. If it's plastic, they break it into little pieces, put it in a gigantic bag, and it's all headed, as the workers told me, it's headed for Tokyo. It's the only incinerator. There's no incinerator in northwest Japan that can handle burning plastic that has the, because they're afraid of dioxin, obviously, which is a real threat also, these hormone disruptors. So they have to burn it in Tokyo. And now with all the prefectures revolting and wanting to get rid of these dump sites, and the stuff's already bagged, so all they have to do is load it on the bags and ship it to Tokyo to burn. Obviously, that's going to be a government option. And this is on the run-up to the Olympics. They're going to be burning like crazy, and radiation levels in Tokyo Bay are going to rise. And, of course, the North Pacific, that black, dry black particles that come across and rain down over the United States and other parts of the world. That's going to increase as in the run-up to this, this event, which is supposed to celebrate the physical strength and health of the world's human population.
Well, the athletes are going to...
they're doomed.
They're going to... Many of them run the risk of never being the same after they're there.
Oh, absolutely. The islands where the swimming events are going to be held, massively radioactive, same levels in many parts of Fukushima province, and again, you can't stop the stuff in the water. Tokyo Bay is connected to that Pacific, and whenever you get the winds blowing in that direction, you're going to have rainstorms coming in, generated off the trench, packed with radioactive isotopes. So, no escaping it. This is a man-made disaster, and the real concern is not even Fukushima hardly anymore. It's the next plant to go up. If this one off Mount Fuji, if it goes down, that's it. That's the end. I think that could be a really serious end to civilization. I've talked about this before across the northern hemisphere. That happens. We're really, we're cooked. Where is everyone going to go to? Where do you move to? Africa? It's going to make Ebola seem like a common cold, okay? People will be desperate to move to Africa if this continues for another 10 years. That's how bad it's getting, okay? And what Dana's talking about is spreading. We're not going to be able to eat food from North America, okay? Consider that. So if you have shares in these cargo, these big grain companies, Monsanto, I would suggest very seriously dumping those shares because basically food production is going to be unsustainable in North America, given the fact that wheat already grows on radioactive soils, naturally granitic radioactive soils. With the added radioisotopes, there's no way you're going to get us to the food supply. So big changes are in the works. This is a major event, never before seen in modern history. Something as big as maybe the ice ages were for our very distant ancestors. A major change happening on this planet.
Right.
And God knows whether we can mutate, whether we can develop resistance, because radiation mutation doesn't act that way.
Well,
it's always random. It's always irrational, random, and destructive. It is never positive in other forms of radiation. Other forms of evolution.
Don't forget the Japanese government official. I forget who he was. He said, "All you have to do is smile, and the radiation can't hurt you."
Yeah, well, not a bad idea. Smile when they put you in a coffin or put you on, life support in your last. Because we have also no idea. The medical statistics out of Japan, as you know, It's a scandal that we're not getting any information. We don't know really
what people
are dying of, or even the actual real death rate. It's gotten, I was able to track it for 2 years. This past year, situation getting murkier, the statistics getting more hazy. We're not really sure what's going on, okay? A lot less detail in the data coming out. Obviously cover up not getting any better, getting far worse as we go along. And we never thought it could get worse than in those days, in those months after 3/11. It has actually gotten worse with more and more restrictions under the security bill.
Yeah.
And on the press, hardly any stories.
Nothing's
in the press
coming
anymore.
out.
All the radiation beat, all the Fukushima beat are pulled off the beat, fired or threatened. No reporting. And AP, Reuters, AFP, they're not filling in the gap. They should. They're foreigners.
You remember when E&E News went down for about 6 weeks? We talked about that.
Yeah.
When they came back, they were putting up 3 to 5 stories a day most of the time. When they came back, 1 story a day, 1 story every other day. That's it. Not much.
Like a vampire got to them, yeah.
Something.
Yeah. Blood is sucked out of their veins. Yeah, is exactly it. There's no strength left. They're hobbled. And I just think that this latest attack on the Asahi Shimbun, now they're attacking professors in the universities, okay? Mm-hmm. They're threatening them and killing them, the gangsters on the payroll of the right-wing government. Mm-hmm. And professors are fighting just for the freedom of being academic, of being able to speak as a teacher, as a researcher. We just don't know where it's going to end, because no one in the world community is stepping forward to challenge this prime minister who's out of control. No,
and sometime in the next 3 or 4 months, I think Operation Kelp Watch 2014 is supposed to wrap up, and it'll go to UC Berkeley, and Mr. Vetter will make his. You and I could probably write the announcement now. It'll be amusing.
California is the state of Orange County, so it should be renamed Operation Naval Watch, because that's about all he's doing, okay?
Very true. All right, take care of yourself. Talk to you next week.
Very good, very good.
Night. All right, there he goes. Yoichi Shimatsu, former weekend editor of the Japan Times, and just an extraordinary man. Totally. We will be back with you tomorrow night. Take care. Lots going on. We're right there at the middle of the homepage. You'll find the latest on Ebola, so if you want to know what's happening there, we'll bring it to you around the clock. Talk to you tomorrow night. Take care.